Hey, folks, welcome to the latest episode of the Wellbeing Show. I'm Noel, I'm your host, which I presume you know by now. Just to remind you, it'd be really good to get your comments and thoughts. Send them in through WhatsApp 07506 319 745 +44 if you're outside of the UK. But don't call me. This is a pre-record, so you might catch me when I'm out having dinner with someone, and I won't be very happy. I'll be a grumpy old man with you. So send me messages. I've got a great guest on, Mike, who's from the UK originally, but he got wise and left. Sort of moved to Australia, which we're all going to be really jealous about. I don't even want to talk to him anymore. I already feel pretty bad about living in a gorgeous lifestyle down under. But I'm really grateful that Mike has turned up. He's got some really interesting things about mental cheats to talk to us about. A bit later on, we're going to get to know his personal journey and then his professional journey. Without further ado, Mike, how you doing? Welcome.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks very much, Noel. A
Great.
beautiful
You
intro
said
from
it's
you
your
there as
first
well.
time being interviewed, and I said, don't think of it as an interview. I'm a rubbish interviewer, by the way, so don't worry about whether the bar's low with me, mate. You're all right. Okay.
Okay.
So, whereabouts in Australia are you?
Living in Sydney at the moment in the world famous Bondi Beach. It's only a
Hmm.
3-minute walk away. Sorry, I can see
I'm
your
just going to
face.
end it now. Oh, great. Where did you come from, though? You didn't grow up on Bondi Beach.
No, I'm from East London on the border with Essex originally.
Okay.
Cold,
Where is that
grey.
then? Where was it in London?
Are you familiar with Woodford Green?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Out on the Red Line.
Yeah, on the Central Line.
Yeah. I used to live in Leighton.
Okay, yeah, it's a couple of stops away.
That's right. Yeah. So way back when Leighton wasn't just a road. It's actually people living there. And then they built that road through it. So,
Oh yeah, I,
uh,
I used to go to Leighton Orient Football Club when I was
did
a
you?
kid as well. I had a £5 season ticket.
Did you? How are they
Yeah,
doing, the old Orient? Do you still follow them?
no idea.
Yeah. They used to have they've actually no, they've just moved to the end of the marshes, I think.
Oh
Uh
yeah.
the new ground, no longer out in just to the edge of Hackney Marshes somewhere, or is that no, that's I think that's the veg market has moved there. Something about Leighton Orient being involved though. So
Ah,
Spitalfields, which is now a trendy market down Liverpool Street, used to be a vegetable market, and that moved out to the edge of Hackney Marsh.
okay. Yeah, I
So
remember when
tell
they
me
did
about
that.
growing up in Woodford Green. What was that like? Is it green? I
Um,
can't remember if it's green or not.
my memories are very grey, to be honest with you. When I
Are
think of the
they?
sky, I do remember spending summers in the park, and those 6 weeks off of school
Yeah.
were the best, and that's what you lived for, really. Other than that, having left. If in my mind it's a little bit unsafe thinking about it. I've still got friends there who have kids and are kind of worried about their kids walking around with the amount of crime that goes on.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
so
remember
yeah, that is
that as a kid?
a
Did
fond
it
memory.
feel unsafe to you as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, I got mugged
Did you?
growing up, and
Ah,
I guess that kind of does lead on to like my journey with working in mental health as well, because I was, severely affected by those kind of experiences
yeah,
and not feeling safe.
yeah. Often young men, I think, are victims of violent crime. It's not talked about, but the figures back it up. I mean, the people who experience most violent crime in the UK certainly are men between the ages of 16 and 24, but are the most victimized by violent crime, but also the most perpetrators of violent crime.
Oh, wow.
So it's men attacking men often. So that's what you see. There is, like in London at the moment, there's big concerns about knife crime, for example, and what are called postcode gangs. So gangs of people that was that sort of in your mind growing up as a boy here?
Not as much, but as I mentioned about my friend worried about his kids, he lives around Leytonstone. And when I was home last time in 2022, He said the knives are a big worry. I'm on Reddit and I subscribed to the London subreddit, and a couple of weeks ago there was like three videos of people with knives and machetes even, which
Yeah,
I never saw,
yeah,
thank
yeah,
God.
yeah.
But, as I mentioned before, I was mugged without knives again, which
Yeah.
I'm thankful for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember as a kid, and I'm a bit older than you, but I also remember growing up on an estate in Birmingham and having that experience of somebody pulling a knife on me and threatening me and stuff like that. I remember it's terrifying, to be honest. Absolutely. I begged for my life. I didn't sort of, I didn't do any of that American kung fu, get rid of the knife stuff. It was like, no, it was like, oh my God, don't
Take
kill
it.
me. Surrender now, whatever you want.
Mm.
Which I think is good advice to anybody who faces those things. Just to
Yeah.
say that, and we talked about this before the show, that talking about these issues might be triggering for some people. We're dealing with it in a relatively light manner, but they're quite serious. And if you've experienced this stuff, you may still get intrusive thoughts, you may still get flashbacks, you may still get raised heart thinking about them, you may still have nightmares about it, etc. That's understandable if you do, and those are sort of post-trauma symptoms, um, as some people have. You may not at all. You may have forgotten about it, and that's also perfectly fine. But if you're still getting memories and intrusive thoughts and feelings and depression, anxiety associated with experiences of violence or threats of violence, I would encourage you to go and seek professional help. Talk to GP about it first. There's plenty of help available for these types of trauma symptoms. You definitely don't need to live with them. Unfortunately, I think a lot of guys do. They spend a long time living with this stuff without realizing that there's a lot of really good help out there for it. And it's not just so that if I'm talking to guys now in particular, it's not the sort of the psychological therapy you would get for this stuff now. It's very quick, like things like EMDR. Go and Google what that means.
Funny
Um,
you said that.
yeah, it's
Sorry
really,
to
really quick.
interrupt.
You don't have to go and talk about your whole chart and all that sort of stuff. You can process these things really quickly. So that's why I say go speak to your GP first to make sure you get proper advice. So you're nodding away. I guess some of these, yeah, did some of these types of experiences live with you as a guy? Is that was that part of your story growing up, really?
Totally. And even like mentioning it to you before when you said, tell me about growing up there, when I said
Did you
unsafe,
have
I
that?
felt the feeling,
Did you?
but I also did EMDR on that about a month ago
Did
as
you?
well. And it 100% takes it down from, they call it the target memory. There's like you give it like a figure, a distress number, like how distressing you find it when you recall the memory. And EMDR does totally help you bring it down. It's a
Yeah.
really good modality.
It's brilliant. I mean, there's a lot of evidence for it. There's other modalities as well that help. Modality is a good word. Let me just explain to people what modality means. So, people, when you talk about psychological therapy, people tend to think monolithic. There's one form of psychotherapy, and you lie in a couch and you talk about stuff. It's not the way it works anymore. So, we have what's called modalities, which are different approaches. They all take some similar core things like changing the way you think, learning how your body reacts to things and managing those reactions in your body, changes in behavior. So they all cover these core things that are part of all of them. But they're often each modality is specifically targeted at certain things. So EMDR classically was developed as a trauma treatment. Um, Early days of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is another modality or approach, if you like, was targeted often at the more common experiences of mental distress like depression, anxiety. And again, they're all focused on having a set of skills to manage things better and giving you tools and resources, and very effective. And there's lots of modalities now that target different types of things, and we may talk about a few of them. But it's just really important for people to understand that rather than saying I want therapy, I would encourage people to say ask their practitioner, what modalities do you work in and what are they designed to help? And then you can decide whether they're going to help you as an individual. Okay, you're nodding away there, Mike. Is that your experience or not?
Yeah, totally. Just agreeing with what you're saying. It's really important to kind of reach out and find out what's available to help you with what you're going through in particular.
Yeah. And I think around these things around trauma, for example, some approaches to therapy can make it worse. And so it's really important to choose the right person and choose the person who's got what we call evidence-based practice. Um, you, it took you a long time to get to EMDR, judging by the age that you are. So there must have been quite a journey around this stuff historically. Tell us a bit about that, if you don't mind. I don't want to upset you. So if you do get upset, just tell me and we can stop and relax our body. You know how to relax your body. And we can
Yeah.
show people how
Uh,
you manage signs of distress.
yeah, well, I don't know. I just feel like my whole life is the journey as
Is
well.
it?
So it's, I was like, oh, where do I start?
Well, let's
Um,
start back in London. You were in London. You were having experiences that were upsetting. Tell me, like your family, your mum and dad. You got siblings.
yeah, I feel like I came from quite a lucky home life, a lot of
Right.
love in my
Yeah,
household.
yeah.
I'm not sure there wasn't any kind of mental illness around. My mum passed away in 2017, and I found out that she was on antidepressants for years at that point.
Okay.
So I don't know if there was anything that kind of got passed on to me through that.
Yeah,
But generally, very happy, very loving. But the outside world was a bit unsafe because of, as I explained before, I got mugged
yeah,
a couple of times, and life throws things at you as well. There's like you
yeah,
get emotional damage when you're in a loving relationship and it doesn't work out and it
yeah,
has to end.
yeah,
You know, it's not like life is just imperfect, I guess. And I
yeah.
think that it throws specific challenges to you to learn how to overcome them.
And what
So
sort of messages, as a young man, as a boy and a young man, what sort of messages were you getting about how to manage psychological distress? A, how to understand it, how to manage it. I'm sorry, my camera picks up these hand movements sometimes. I don't know why it does that.
um,
It's relatively annoying. I don't know how to turn it off. Go
well,
on.
it's interesting you asked that because like a big part of my story is I was obese growing up
Okay.
and I was bullied for in different parts of my journey into adolescence, but I also had a lot of friends as well, so it's kind of like a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
I i felt lonely at times, like completely alone. I cried myself to sleep. So a lot to unpack on my journey of healing as well, because we were talking about my
Yeah.
journey with therapy and what got me to EMDR. um yeah,
And what's
as I
your
mentioned.
understanding? Do you mind me asking? It like
Yeah, go on.
just for people who don't know, Mike and I talked about this before, and I said to him that I don't want all the trauma and the difficulties, more the solution. And he has complete rights to tell me that he doesn't want to talk about something if he doesn't want to, and that's cool. But also at the same time, we discussed how to have safe conversations about topics that are upsetting. Mike's going to take care of himself, and we're both going to take care of you when we talk about these topics and stop and take our time. So people should relax and remember this is pre-recorded, so you can press the pause button, folks. Okay, you don't have to sit there. All right, frozen in fear. Just in terms of the obesity, what was your understanding of it then and now? Because I was always the fat kid at school. That was the definite truth about me. And my experience was like my family, it wasn't abuse or anything, but sugar was the response to upset in my family. If you're upset about something, you'd eat chocolate, you'd eat a cake, or
Mhm.
you'd eat some other forms of carbs like some crisps and all that sort of stuff, or
Bread
bread
and butter.
bread and butter with sugar on it. We used to have sugar sandwiches when I was a kid. Um, and that was very much how we, if you like, medicated a lot of the things. You're nodding away. Is that sort of similar in your family?
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't recognized as like I was medicating anything. I was just fat and I was like eating in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Um, my two older brothers weren't fat.
Okay.
My parents were a bit overweight, and I think we do maybe have a genetic predisposition to not being able to process carbs very well.
Yeah.
But I didn't know at the time that I probably was medicating sadness, and um, it didn't come to me until you know, I was in my 30s. I had a memory come up, and it was actually I was doing CBT. I did CBT then
Yeah.
because this came up that a teacher picked on me when I was about 6 years old. And my dad doesn't remember much, like he's 80 and his memory's been bad for about 15 years.
Yeah.
But I phoned him. This is about 4 years ago when I had a triggering incident, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got picked on by a teacher. There was a teacher ostracized me, and loved everybody else in the class except me.
Yeah.
My parents had to come to the school. I phoned my dad and I said, Dad, do you remember this? And he's like, Yeah, of course I remember. You were like a different boy the next, like after it happened. And so now, with like my knowledge that I have, I can look back on it and see that might have been one of many triggering events that led to me eating for comfort in front of the TV, trying not to feel
What
pain.
did the teacher say and do again? Just so, because I checked out a little bit there.
That's all right. I felt she ostracized me. She like loved everybody else in the class, and I felt like I was being picked on by her all the time.
Right.
She really had no love for me. This is like year one or two.
Right.
Um, can't remember particular incidents,
Okay.
which is a good
So
thing.
there's
I kind of
just a sense in which you were separated off and you were scapegoated.
yeah, made to feel different and not as good as
Okay.
basically.
All right.
And it was, it took place over when you're a little kid. Days feel
What
like
I don't know
weeks,
if you
and
know this,
over
but
a period of
there's
time.
a lot of evidence around what's called attachment processes. Attachment processes are how we form emotional bonds with each other, or not, as the case may be. Now we have primary, secondary, tertiary attachment processes in the classic model. Primary being primary carer, the person who first feeds us and changes our nappy and holds us when we're upset. The secondary carer, the next person along who does that, and then the tertiary are sibling and school. Oddly enough.
Mm.
And we know that kids, when they go to school, and I know this from my background as a social services manager, so that when we're assessing whether a child's at risk or not, they may be have a difficult home life, but if they're in a good school, we know that balances it off. And the converse is true. You could have a fantastic home life, but if you're having a dreadful time at school, it's the same risk factors because of these attachment processes that are opened up. So, as a child, you would be trying to emotionally bond with these teachers, you would be vulnerable, and the way they relate to you will have an imprinting effect on your personality. Yeah. Most teachers know
Wow.
that, right?
Yeah, I had no idea. And maybe in the 80s, they didn't, or late 80s, early 90s, they
But
didn't
they
know
did.
how much of an impact they could have.
This stuff
Yeah,
has been going on
she
for
was
a long
nasty.
time, I'm telling you. It's
She was
just
nasty.
to underline the importance of these relationships. So, if you want to think about as an individual,
Mm.
where some of these predispositions come from, those relationships are important. So, what I'm saying to you, Mike, is as a professional, I'm telling you that having that experience with a teacher, it is understandable, it's deeply disturbing to you as an individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. As a child,
Yeah.
you
Appreciate you
understand.
telling me that as well.
Yeah,
I didn't know that before, how
yeah.
impactful that tertiary attachment
It's
is.
really seriously, and it affects because tertiary attachments are also work. That's literally it. Tertiary attachments in the model are how we move from family to public,
Mm.
and so it can
Yeah,
have
and with your kids, that's your
really.
first tertiary attachment. It's the
That's right.
teacher,
That's
basically.
right. It's like seriously important stuff. So totally understand that that would be really upsetting, to be
Mm.
honest. And also, if any of those, and that's why things like bullying in school can have lifelong impacts upon people. If school is not safe, it's the same as home not being safe. And the psychological impact is I'm not safe.
Mm.
Inside of me is not safe. Yeah, that's
But
one.
also, like you said, having a safe home life and primary attachment balances it out,
It really
which
does. It really
I'm
does.
lucky I had.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Can imagine those kids that have difficulties in both areas. It's totally understandable why they can't function in society, right? So there was that
Uh,
going on. On reflection, you would now say what, that you were eating to comfort to some extent?
Definitely, like
Yeah,
not the pain.
yeah. But your brothers didn't? Did they have, because maybe they didn't have the same experiences at school, for example?
Yeah, that's totally it.
Right. Okay. So you left school, thankfully left this teacher behind, although
Yeah, that was
still
primary
part of
school.
your psyche. I can understand why you didn't want to go. Um, you had good friends as well, so it must have been quite confusing, these feelings you had about yourself and then being picked upon by people. That's a very confusing and difficult sort of
Mm,
emotional experience, sort of mixed messages like that.
yeah,
Everything becomes very ambivalent and dependent, etc. Did you then go on to work from school or university? What
I
was your...
went to university for 3 years in Nottingham,
Yeah,
and it's funny thinking about it because towards the end of high school, I lost the weight, and then during university, I put it all back on again.
yeah,
And I know it's not a weight loss show, but it has been a bit like that
yeah,
throughout my life. And um, yeah, university, yeah, it was great. I had good friends. I had a lot of fun. I
yeah,
got my degree in the 3 years, which was the aim. And then, yeah, I went to work in finance in the City of London.
yeah.
I did
Is
that
that what you
for,
studied at university? You studied economics or...
I know I was in Nottingham and I did business and IT there. And yeah, I went to work in finance because I had an internship as part of my degree and um, knew some people that, you know, could get me in.
Yeah,
And that was good, but I went to visit Australia and Thailand after I'd been working for about a year and a half and saw a lot of people who were like traveling and, I had other friends and people I went to school with that I knew had gone when they were 18 to see the world, and that was what I wanted.
mm,
So when I came to Australia on holiday, I met my brother's friend who had been he'd worked with in London, but was
mm,
living in Bondi.
mm.
And he said to me, if you want to come over here, get a couple of years experience and then you'll be able to get a job. And so when he said that, I was like, yeah. I went to Thailand on the way back to London. I was like, yes, I want to see more of Asia
Why not?
and
Absolutely.
potentially live in Australia.
Yeah, yeah,
So my family, my oldest brother moved to Los Angeles when I was 15, and my parents were planning to move over there because he had kids, like who were like their grandkids, and yeah, they wanted to retire outside of England and be closer to them. So that kind of gave me the permission to, leave the country and go explore and find what the world had to offer me. And so, yeah, that's what I did. I went traveling around Asia for 4 months, came to Australia, traveled a bit. I did farm work, which a lot of Brits have to do to get another year added to their visa. So
is
it's
it?
like completely different experience. Yeah, going to work on a farm in
I bet it's
Queensland. And
amazing, actually.
yeah, it was like,
I'd have loved a year on a farm. Would have been awesome, to be honest.
yeah, it was really, really great. I was really, really lucky all the way along. Um, After doing the farm work, I came back to Sydney and I worked in finance again because that was my key to getting sponsorship to stay here for longer.
Yeah, yeah,
But it was never really what I was passionate about. It was never really what I wanted to do. And I felt like it was weighing me down a lot uh, doing that.
yeah,
Fast forward a couple of years, I got my permanent residency so I could stay in Australia and I wasn't dependent on the job.
yeah.
And I had a couple of friends that had moved to Thailand and their business had started to pick up. And yeah, I thought, well, I can come back to Australia anytime now. They'd originally asked me to move out there when they moved there to start the business. It was in real estate, which was something completely different to what I was doing in finance. I went over to Thailand and I helped them launch into a new market. So I went to Chiang Mai, which when I went traveling 7 years earlier was the only place I went to in Southeast Asia where I was like, oh, I could live here one day because it had like a coffee culture, it's very artistic as a city, it's very, very, very chill, and the locals were mixing with the foreigners. So I had a really good sense of community, which was
Yeah.
something that I always look for wherever I go. Um, yeah, I went there and yeah, I found everything I was looking for, but I did have a major life event, which could be described as a trauma. After I'd only been there for about 3 months, my mum got sick
Hmm.
and I she was in America and yeah, I had to leave and fly to America to, you know, look after her. Um it was cancer and it was very aggressive and
Yeah.
it was hell for 2 months and then she passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, yeah, it's life and there's I'm grateful that it was only 2 months of that hell.
Yeah.
But that actually kind of I've missed out a bit of the story actually now I'm thinking about it. But that did lead me to doing therapy for the first time
Did it. Right.
be- because after, she passed away, I went back to Chiang Mai and I had a group of friends that I'd made in the first 3 months that were my drinking buddies,
Yeah.
but they're not the people that I could go there, go back to and like open up to
Oh,
about
of course. Of course.
emotional things, what's going on.
Of course.
And I think that in society in general, men don't really have that many
Yeah.
avenues to speak about what they're going through emotionally, especially if it's negative. I guess if it's positive, there's no problem to tell your friends, oh, I won a new contract at work. I'm loving it. It's great. People are happy to hear that. But if you're a man and you tell your friends that you're like really sad, they don't want to hear it, unfortunately. And so yeah, I sought help in Chiang Mai and found a really, really great hypnotherapist
Hmm.
who I've been recommended to by my clients, by someone that I worked with, or someone who worked for me. And then someone I worked with turned out to be his girlfriend. She was working for a developer over there, a really lovely Thai woman. They all pointed to this one guy. Um, I went to see him, and I went on my journey. It took me um, with grief. I did psychology in school, and with grief, there's 5 stages. I don't know if this is how you know it as well, Noel, but they call it DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. It took me months to get to acceptance, and like I'd go through the stages and sometimes go back. But yeah, I really did have a breakthrough, and without like seeking help and finding an avenue where I could talk about it and be safe to talk about it and have that time where it was just me to like let it out, I wouldn't have got there as quick.
So that was the foot in the door for you about,
It
oh,
was.
there is help
Yeah.
available. Right.
Yeah.
Great. Great. I mean, it's a familiar story, the idea that, like, as men, often we tend to surround ourselves with people who reflect maybe some of the more energetic and fun aspects of ourselves, whilst neglecting those men who might be there during troubled times. And we hit trouble times, and then we go, "Oops, hang on, this
Mm.
group, this support group isn't as diverse and supportive as I need." But you sort of saw that, and I guess you've moved beyond that as well now. I'm imagining now that you have men in your life who you do feel comfortable to turn towards.
Well, actually, I go to a men's circle here in Sydney.
Right.
and I help facilitate some processes for other men. Sometimes I'm just watching the other men go through their processes, and all of it is amazing, really. Like there is something to watching somebody else work out what they're going through that actually feels soothing and healing for yourself. And you might even have a problem that watching them process their problem
Yeah,
actually helps you
yeah,
in turn
without a doubt.
to process yours.
The
It's
sort of role modeling of stuff. I'm intrigued if you reflect upon it, because you had a sort of choice in Chiang Mai, didn't you? You could have gone with the drinker buddies and just gone into drink and dealt with the grief that way, which is a choice, or find help that wasn't dependent on a substance. Um, and often men will choose alcohol, for example, as a way of dealing with uncomfortable feelings. Do you know what it was about you that took you, or was it totally accidental? On reflection, would you say there was something in you that took you to help seeking rather than just numbing out?
I think I've been through, as I said, my home life was great, but going through that, the bullying and the rejection,
Yeah.
the teacher and other people in my life, I felt like I've probably been through a lot where I knew I needed help. I couldn't do it alone. I was never going to turn to like substances to numb the pain because I knew by that point in my life that that's not what works for me. I
Okay.
don't think it really works for anyone, but I'm not judging. Um,
Well, it doesn't. It's not a judgment. It's just a fact.
yeah, I really needed help. And, I said before that I missed a part of my story. Before I moved to Thailand, I did have a really bad breakup, and I found yoga to help me then.
Ah, okay, yeah,
I
yeah,
I really went inside with the yoga.
right,
I built more mental resilience than I'd ever had before
yeah.
through that practice. And they also had meditation there as well, actually. Um, but I think that was part of the same journey as well, to like opening me up to seeking help in the form of a therapist.
Really interesting because there is new research coming out around exercise as a, if you like, a standalone treatment for depression, particularly. And in particular, there was research last year that indicated that yoga as a standalone treatment for depression or sadness, if you want to call it sadness, in men is more effective.
I believe it.
Isn't
I've
that
done it.
interesting?
Yeah, I've had breakthroughs with it. Totally
And
makes sense
it's
to me.
again, it's interesting because I do a lot of yoga, because I enjoy it. That's why I do it, and also it does help me, like in lots of ways. Meeting new people, exercise. I'm an old man. I need to exercise. Stretching is really important to old muscles like mine, but
Mm.
also that practice of breathing while moving is a form of moving meditation for sure. And we know that managing breathing manages our central nervous system. Yeah. And so we reduce activation in our bodies. We reduce, literally, putting it simply, we reduce the level of stress that is produced. Yeah.
Yeah, makes 100%
And
sense,
so
with the
again,
whole.
there was that. So the meditative yoga practice and the meditation, I presume some sort of form of mindfulness, Buddhist-based mindfulness. Um, was again another doorway into thinking about different ways of helping yourself rather than choosing self-destructive methods like eating too much food or drinking too much beer, etc. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
great. Also, the culture in, I mean, I know Chiang Mai a little bit, as I told you. It is a beautiful place, but the culture in that country is very different, I think, to Western cultures.
It is. Well, Chiang Mai in particular it's a very calm city. It's like the antithesis of Bangkok, which is like really stuffy, big buildings. Chiang Mai is low rise, very green, lots of like there's green mountains around it, and um, there's like 300 temples in like a 10 square mile area of the main city. So there's monks everywhere. it feels very peaceful. So it's really conducive to healing. It's got a lot of yoga schools, and it attracts a lot of people that are into, wellness and yeah,
Yeah.
living and feeling good.
So there's that culture there in particular in that place as well. And so that sort of, I guess, seeped into you a little bit being around that.
Definitely.
I mean, I think it's a really important thing because um, we are who we surround ourselves with. Do
Yeah.
you know what
They
I
say
mean?
the five people, right?
It's the truth. And so if I surround myself with really damaged, dangerous people, guess what happens to me, right?
Hmm.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So be careful about who you choose, is that sort of thing. Um, so you do this hypnotherapy, which is again another form of deep relaxation and
Hmm.
acceptance and ability to face things in a relaxed manner that usually you tense up and shy away from. That's often how it works. And it can be particularly useful, I think, in terms of things that involve shame or distressing responses or triggered responses, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then what
What it
was the
does
next?
is, well, what I want to say is what it actually targets is the subconscious mind,
Yeah.
which you're not aware of when you're awake as well. Now, whether I went completely down and under into it, I'm not entirely sure at the moment. I think that he told me afterwards I'm a difficult person, or a difficult client. I think that might be the reason why, but it definitely helped. Now, you were going to ask me what was next?
Yeah, tell us the next step in the story because I'm aware of time, but also want to get to the point where you now do these retreats. But also, I
Okay.
want to give you the opportunity to tell us what are the significant, if you like, moments.
Hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Well, after about 3 sessions, he was another Englishman living there, a few years older than me. He asked me to go and watch football with him
Okay.
because, we're in Thailand. There's a community of expats there, but we're living in a Thai city. I said no, I want to just keep it professional and like he asked me another couple of times, and then I went. And what subsequently happened was he'd been there for like 10 years, and he introduced me to a whole community of expats there, that were like artists and teachers, but a big subsect of them were in the wellness industry, and
Mhm.
they were really, really good at what they did. I met, this is back in like 2018. I'd never heard of breath work, but I met like the most amazing breathwork teacher
Yeah.
I've ever come across. And
Yeah.
yeah, so he really opened up the city for me through that introduction. So I'm really glad I did go out
Took that risk.
and
Well done.
friend. Yeah, and there was like 100 expats that had been there a long time in that community, and yeah, it had a really big impact on my life because I felt more free to express myself in like any kind of terms. It wasn't the same as the default reality drinking buddies. It was people that you could actually really go deep with, and there was a lot of
Great
love, and it was
story,
very
mate. It's
heartfelt
a
there.
great, it's beautiful. I mean, I think it's also because, like, often when talking about men and mental health, it's how do you get the guy through the door? Once they're in, they're like everybody else. They go, "Oh, this makes sense. I'm going to do it." Right. But just
Yeah.
getting through that doorway is the difficult thing. And so he used this football match and this group of guys as a way of getting you in, which was
Yeah, I don't think his
brilliant.
intention to like do much more than like just be friends though,
Yeah.
if I'm honest with you. But it was just the side effect was it I met all these other amazing people that were in that realm.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Um,
Yeah.
Work is again. I mean, it's indisputable. Learning how to breathe. People think I know how to breathe. You don't.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
you just had a thought saying, I know how to breathe. You don't know how to breathe. Go and do some breath work. It's always a brilliant thing to learn. There's so many fantastic techniques. Like the British Army have a brilliant technique called four-way breathing. Breathe in to four, hold to four, breathe out to four, hold, breathe in to four. And that is, they
The
use that as a
box.
standard way of managing trauma. If the British
Yeah.
Army are using it,
Game
mate,
changer.
you know what I mean? It's like serious. You better
Yeah.
learn. So it is a game changer. It is definitely a game changer without a doubt. And so you meet these group of really interesting guys who are involved in creativity, arts, holistic healing, personal development and growth, and that's like, wow, I'll have a bit of this.
Yeah. I also had like a not even through that group. I went back to yoga as well at that
Right.
point because like I told you about the first yoga experience when I was living in Sydney.
Yeah.
I was doing it for about 6 months religiously then, and then I fell out of it not long before I moved to Thailand. I found a teacher who owned there was a cat's cafe, which was like a really cool place to hang out. But actually, the owner of it was a yogi, and she gave me private lessons pretty much for 6 months as well up there, and that really helped me like overcome what I was going through as well at the same
Yeah.
time. Um, so from there, I mean, I practiced a lot of different things and had a lot of cool experiences in Chiang Mai. Um, but I was working in real estate, so there was a big change,
Yeah.
and I was having a lot of tension at work. The friends that I went to help, expand their company, they wanted me to move to Bangkok, and I didn't want to go.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And yeah, so like, I was asking them, what's the role in Bangkok? I
Yeah.
launched the Chiang Mai office. Bangkok is now a mature market. What's the role? We didn't agree on anything. They said you can take a sabbatical, take a month off. You've been working really hard. And if you don't want to come back, you can have your share of the company. Now, when they released the shares, I was supposed to work for 2 more years to have them vested to get my piece. So the time came, and I was going to go to Vietnam with that therapist friend actually um, for a month. And then I was like, do you know what? I should probably go to Australia. I've
Mhm.
been in Asia for 3 years now. And, if we don't agree on anything, do I even want to live in Asia? Let me see, go back to Australia, see all of my friends there, see what that feels like, and then make the decision.
Mhm.
And it was March 2020, and I flew back on the 13th of March. Had one of my best friends here asked if I could stay with him for 2 weeks if I was going to come over and visit. He said, yep.
And
And
a year
then,
later, you're still,
yeah, pretty much.
because everything
But,
closes. But just,
but but this is the story is that, I saw all my friends, and then the next week on the Friday, I was at the beach where I used to live. It was 6 p.m. It was hot. The beach was packed. It was like everybody had finished work, and it was amazing. I was like, do you know what? I want to live here. I've decided I want to move back to Australia.
mhm.
And the next day we went into lockdown.
Yeah, right.
It was the universe definitely called me back here.
Well, the
That's
virus
I
decided
have to.
you're not going anywhere. You're staying here.
Yeah. It had started before I left, but the lockdown officially came like the day after I made the decision I wanted to stay. And
You're very lucky as well because it did. The virus wreaked havoc in Thailand. I mean, it was really nasty there.
yeah, Australia was seemed like the best place to be the first year, and then the second year it didn't. And so it also depended where you were.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, Australia got very aggressive about the lockdowns.
yeah,
Like it really
I
did.
for the second year I'd moved up to Queensland,
Yeah,
and it was to the Gold Coast, and that's when Sydney got the bad lockdown. So I got very lucky. I avoided like the real bad time in Sydney, but Melbourne had it really bad in the first year. Um, so to carry on, like how I where I got to like this journey with men's travel retreat.
yeah,
It was a couple of years, I guess. I did the first year in lockdown in Sydney. I was trying to like teach myself to make money online.
yeah,
Um, the second year I went up to the Gold Coast. I was doing pretty much the same, and then I ended up working in finance again. But in the Gold Coast, it's not really a financial center. I was working for a broker there, and I've been there for about 10 months, and I was like, I went to visit my friend in Melbourne for the weekend for his birthday, and I was like, oh, where I'm living has no culture whatsoever. That's what I realized. It's a very like it's beautiful, it's by the beach, but it's very, very it's a retirement city, it's very
Mhm,
plastic.
mhm,
Nothing is really coming out of there, nothing's happening there. So I went to Melbourne, I was like, I need to move back to society.
mhm.
And I took another banking job in Sydney. I got lucky to get one and I moved back. Um, had a bit of a nightmare with the journey down, but I landed, had a soft landing. Another friend came through and helped me with her place because she was pretty much living at her boyfriend's, and I looked after her cats and paid the rent, obviously. And yeah, I did that banking job for a year, but as I said, the first time, that wasn't what makes my heart sing. I was
Mhm.
hating it.
Yeah.
And I really, really focused on, I don't know what your thoughts are on like manifestation, Noel, if you think it's all woo-woo, a little bit far out there.
I think positive thinking is always a good idea. That's what I think about it. So any way you can sort of frame your positive thinking is always a good idea, as long as it doesn't become too toxic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what I have to say about it isn't at all. And
No, I mean toxic positivity, like the idea of
oh, yeah.
denying that there's difficult feelings when there's also yeah, exact that sort of nonsense. Like no way,
Yeah.
thanks very much. Um,
So I listened to a guy, Dr. Wayne Dyer. I listened to his audiobook
yeah,
and I was really concentrating on bringing money into my life. And I'd almost forgotten about the shares in the company in Thailand.
yeah,
And they came through. They came through and they paid me,
yeah.
which I thought might never happen. And I wasn't counting on it at all. My contract at the banking job, which I hated, was coming up. I asked them for an obscene amount of money. Like
Mhm.
that's what it would have taken for me to stay there and go full time. They said no. I was like, the money came in at exactly the same time. I was like, right, this is it.
Okay.
So I went to see my family in America because I hadn't seen them during COVID. And then I came back and I was like, right, well, what do I want to do with my life? I had a potential job at a tech company lined up. I'd had two interviews. I was yet
Mhm.
to meet the CEO. They messed me around a little bit, but I went back to Thailand because I had not been to the island of Koh Phangan. The whole time I lived in Chiang Mai,
Mhm.
it was too expensive for me to fly there. It was like $500 return.
Mhm.
There's a monopoly on the airport in Koh Samui, yada yada yada. It's a long story, but Koh Phangan is the place that I went where I decided I was going to travel the world way back when I told you the story about traveling to Australia and then stopping in Thailand on the way back to the UK.
Mhm.
That was the place where I decided I was going to travel the world. When I lived in Chiang Mai, a lot of like the hippie people would go down there for a couple of months a year. I knew there was a good community there. There's lots of yoga schools, but I'd never seen any of that. I'd only seen the full moon party place. I really wanted to go there.
Yeah.
I went there and I discovered like a little bit more in the wellness space there. I was doing yoga every day when I was there, and I was asking the universe, like, show me the next path. I kind of did that when I moved back to Australia after COVID. Um, I went in with full faith that it was going to work out. And I was reading a book at the time called Ikigai, which is, I don't know, have you heard of it? It's got like a Venn diagram on the front. It's like what the world needs, what you love, what you're good at. And
Mhm.
then they merge. And I'd seen one of the guys from the community in Chiang Mai. He was now living on Koh Phangan. He'd invited me to a men's retreat when I first landed on the island. I couldn't go to that one. I had something else happening that weekend. I just arrived. But through reading the book, like, I spent 5 weeks on the island and I had money in my pocket. I wanted to do something that helped regular people. something that was irregular, like not that anyone else was doing it, something that was really, really fun at the same time. And there was one more factor. Yeah, well, that was it. Something that was really, really fun that helped people.
Mhm.
And I was searching for it. I was journaling, and my friends that I kind of made on the island, they're like, "Well, what do you love?" And I was like, "Well, I love travel, and I'm I'd been working as a project manager, and just all the pieces kind of came together. I knew all of these people that were amazing practitioners in the wellness industry.
Mhm.
I My role in Thailand when I was running the real estate company was showing foreigners around. My role in Sydney has also had a degree of that with like the clients in the finance world, like taking 10 Japanese guys on a tour of Sydney, eating and drinking.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've always been a really, really great connector. Now, I don't have, I'm not a practitioner of any modality like a therapist, but I'm really good at bringing people together and
Mhm.
hosting. I knew property in Thailand and I knew all the best people working in the wellness space. So, wanting to help people, my group is men around our age. I know we've got a bit of a gap, but we're very high at risk for mental illness and suicide was the
Yeah,
big one.
yeah,
And that's like touched me. I've had friends that have unfortunately gone down that path and it's
yeah,
devastating. And
yeah.
to be able to do like one grain of sand in the desert of that pain to help was irresistible to me. And yeah, the idea for men's travel retreat just came to me really through that process. And
So there was this sort of crystallization thing.
yeah, it was like a thunderbolt hit me
Burst
while
and
I
then
was
it
reading that
suddenly
book.
emerges. No, I get that. Like a supersaturated solution or your life experience to date, suddenly, boom, it emerges. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. So tell me about these men's travel retreats. What on earth are they?
Okay. So, I've mentioned two places in Thailand, Chiang Mai and Koh Phangan.
Yeah,
I lived in Chiang Mai for 3 years. I've spent months of my life now on Koh Phangan, and both places have this kind of community of people working in the wellness space. Um, Koh Phangan's like a beautiful island in the south, and Chiang
yeah,
Mai is a very green city in the north. They're very different. They feel like different countries,
yeah,
but they have similarities as well. And yeah, we go for 12 nights in total, 6 nights in Chiang Mai, 6 nights in Koh Phangan with a group of men from around the world,
yeah,
myself and two or three other hosts, and a whole gang of facilitators basically coming and going. And, as I said, I was still am a project manager. I designed an itinerary that incorporates the three pillars that we work with: mind, body, fun. I know it's normally like mind, body, spirit, mind,
no,
body,
but the
soul.
fun is the
But
definitely that's what I
yeah,
would
it's
add
the
in,
best
mate.
part.
Seriously.
Yeah, and it's
It's like, yeah, definitely. Good idea.
yeah, it's for regular guys that haven't necessarily stepped through the door, as you said
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
Um, we we really have a soft touch to ease into doing the work, but the work definitely does get done. So,
okay.
under like the mind stuff, we do men's circles,
Yeah,
which is something that I've learned through my group here in Sydney.
yeah, yeah,
And the chief counselor and host is, is a counselor. He's been doing it for decades. He's
yeah,
amazing at hosting them. So I've kind of let him take control there and I just help out
yeah,
and
yeah,
as do the other hosts. But they're so powerful because it allows men to really take the mask off
mm,
that they're carrying around with them in society every day.
yeah.
And yeah, we saw extraordinary breakthroughs when we went in October last year.
Oh,
Uh, there's also one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist,
So I was
breath
going to say, what are
work.
the safety nets? Because sometimes, so you've got qualified professionals there as well who can hold people if issues come up.
Yeah,
Great.
100%. Um, but yeah, there's so I'll just tell you about the mind body fun
Go on.
that's involved as well. So in both locations, we have similar program, but as they say in Thailand, same but different. Um, so yeah, one-on-one sessions with a licensed cognitive therapist.
Yeah.
Breath work is kind of one of those ones that's between mind and body, as is the yoga.
Yeah.
Um, Thailand's famous for massage. We've got and also saunas and ice baths, which also they're very physical, but there is a mental aspect. You know, I sauna every week, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the challenge sometimes, like your mind is going mad,
Yeah. Yeah.
as is the ice. Like you got to control your breathing to be able to stay in the ice, otherwise your body just wants to jump straight out. And then there's a few other modalities. I won't go too deep into it, but then the fun part is everything that's good to do for tourists in Thailand. As I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to take foreigners
Brilliant.
around over there.
I think
I'm a
that's
massive
absolutely
foodie.
spot on, Mike. Definitely. Yeah.
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 And what we find is the guides, they're all there for different reasons, but the same reason as well. They're interested in their own personal growth, development, and healing to a degree. And they get on like a house on fire. You know, there's these really great conversations that are happening that aren't part of the men's circle all throughout the time. And what we do to help is we facilitate we have a WhatsApp group, and you know that comes into play when we're on the retreat, but it's still going, and it's like
So
six
these
months after.
relationships can continue outside as well.
Yeah,
Oh, brilliant.
yeah, it's
Brilliant.
aftercare. It's
Sounds
needed, you
fantastic.
know. You're
I mean,
creating a community.
one of the things that's really exciting to me talking to you is because it's there's a lot of lived experiences. You're putting in, very thoughtful stuff, and you're having fun. I mean, I get really annoyed with so-called personal development stuff that is always grim and serious. Why? What's the point? Because a good life isn't the absence of just feeling shit. It's all a good life is doing stuff that you like, right? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's really important.
Yeah,
The other thing, though, is
100%.
particularly men going to Thailand in particular, because it is so associated with men going to Thailand for the very wrong reason, right? The sex tourism, the child abuse, it's disgusting stuff happens. I love the fact that you've got this guiding thing, which is getting into what that culture can offer and what men can be productive. And I guess these tourists, male tourists coming in, spending money, which is important for the local economy, but not being horribly horrific sex tourists, destructive men. And that is
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, I think on every level that is super. Was that part of your thinking? Because you must know all that stuff around you.
Not so much, but it does bring me joy hearing you say that because I didn't think about it that much. It is kind of like the antithesis
It
of
absolutely is, yeah.
the sex pat they call them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really.
It's disgusting. It's where
Yeah,
Gary Glitter went and all that sort of stuff. They all end up there, and it's horrific. But it's wonderful that you, as a sort of healthy, creative guy who's been through his own journey, can actually engage with the healing potential of that country and
yeah, and
contribute
there is so much.
positively, you know.
Yeah, there is so much there, and you know, we want to like help the people in Thailand as well. They've given
Yeah.
so much to us,
I'm
and
going to
we
ask you
want
to
this to
move your
go.
head to one side because we can't see your. Move your head
Oh,
over
go on,
so I can see it. So that's the men's travel
go.
retreat. That's your sort of image for it. It sounds wonderful. I mean, it really does. And I was laughing with Teresa, my PR person, who contacted you and said, "See if you can get me a freebie," which I'm not going to do. But
We can work something out, but let's
we're
talk
not going to
after.
do it. I would never do it. But it's like I was really excited because it's about men. I was excited because it's about men being creative and productive in Thailand, and really challenging that narrative about men that go there for horrific, horrible reasons.
Mm.
And it's also co-producing health. So you like these guys are part of what's going on. It's not they're not just passive recipients. And I also love the idea of the fun, which I think is a really important part of health, well-being, and growth. So on every level, it was sort of ticking boxes for me. In terms of how do people get hold of you? Have you got a website, social media?
Yeah, we've got all of that. You have to these days, really. So our website is www.menstravelretreats.com.
So one word, men's travel retreats.
Yeah, all one word. And all the information is on there, itineraries, about info, the hosts, yeah, how to get in further contact with us. It's all there. Our Instagram is, this is a bit harder. So the website menstravelretreat.com is easy. The Instagram is men's underscore travel underscore retreat. I don't know if men's travel retreat was taken. I can't even remember. But,
Who knows?
um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I guess they're the two best ways to get in touch. And
right.
all the info is there. It's everywhere. Yeah, we're just
And it's also, I
hoping to help
mean, if you
as many
don't
people
mind
as
me giving
possible.
you some personal feedback, you come across as such a really decent bloke,
Thank
really kind and really compassionate,
Thanks a
and
lot. Thank you.
not at all over corporate. You know, you're not just selling a brand, you've lived this stuff. And it's, I love the accidental nature of it. It's not accidental, but it is accidental, isn't it? You
Yeah, I
sort of
fell into
stumble
it.
upon this stuff, right?
Yeah, well, what you said about how I'm coming across,
Yeah,
it's I got so much joy helping people and seeing them grow.
I can see
This
it.
is like this is it. That is it. That's what I want.
Yeah,
It's
no,
amazing.
and it's also because it's work for you as well. It's like, look at my teddy. Try my teddy. No, that don't work. Go
Yeah.
find your own teddy. It's like great stuff. More men should be doing it. And I'm really
Yeah,
pleased to have
I
met
think
you,
so.
Mike. Really pleased to have met you. And
No, me too. Thank you, Noel.
I'm glad you found what works for you and are sort of happy to share it around. I'd encourage people to get hold of you. Thailand,
Thank you.
very healing in and of itself, but also to have a bit of an itinerary there is a good thing. So, listen, lovely to have you on. You stay there. We've got to finish there, unfortunately.
Okay.
Folks, I hope you found that as inspiring as I have. Thanks for joining us this week. And we might hook up with Mike in a few months' time just to see how things are going and whether he's still doing heat treatment in the Thai summer. I doubt it. That's enough heat going on. But lovely to have you here, and I shall catch you all at the next show. So bye bye for now, folks.